in short of it is you're either conscious or unconscious of how you want to show up in the world, and choosing to show up as a disciplined and respectful and connected man, which are, the ways I'm choosing. Again, it's not easy if you're not naturally that, which is why it works well for me. But I think the program has been great, not only as a jumpstart to the man I want to become, but it's also a great, because like how we met is I was a volunteer. I came in to serve, and that, I was like reflecting on that because I'm thinking about my shares to my family that I'm about to go hang out with, and it was spiritual, man. Like it was an extremely spiritual experience. I fasted for 4 days for the first time during that
Mm.
program as I was serving, and the guys that had some ridiculous breakthroughs were all connected to me in some capacity. And I was like,
Mm.
man, I don't know. Like, is the fasting helping people? Like, like what's happening in the physical realm that's happening in the spiritual realm? I don't have an
Mm.
answer because it's occurring. But I'm still processing some of that when I reflect on it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Big Hitters Podcast. I'm joined by my friend Irwin Ki, who coaches founders of startups on how to close big enterprise deals. It's a really unique offering, and frankly, I'm really stoked to have the conversation with him. He's a friend of mine from Rise Up Kings, and he's got a very fun and engaging personality, so I'm excited to dive into it with him. Irwin, that's just a unique offering. Like, how did you wind up in this space, I suppose?
Yeah, nice to be on your podcast, Andrew. It started with a dream, right? I think there's always, I don't know if you ever watched Boiler Room, but the opening line is like, you hear about all these people in tech, being secretaries, becoming millionaires, working at Microsoft, right? Like, that kind of movie planted that seed. Is like, that'd be really interesting to taste that Silicon Valley dream. And I grew up in North Carolina, to a family of first generation born immigrants that migrated here. So I was the first generation born here, and I was always interested in tech, entrepreneurship, and then I got into the industry in Cary, North Carolina, at a company called BMC Software, and was able to, rise the ranks there and pursue an opportunity out here in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, and I chased that dream, got married, got engaged, moved out there, built a whole company. The startup was called Okta. They're trading at over $16 billion right now. But when I
Yeah,
joined it was, yeah, a lot of people know about Okta. But
yeah.
when I joined, I was employee number 70, only 3 million in revenue. I was hired as part of the revamp, from basically their first sales executive didn't work out, couldn't hit their numbers, and part of that is they couldn't close enterprise deals on a timely fashion, and they hired a whole new VP, and he hired me to build the inside sales team. So I was brought on to build their SDR team and really scale the company and solve the pipeline challenges they have. But ultimately, a lot of the guys I trained, majority, like, 6 out of the 7 first sales hires were all enterprise outbound. So really focusing on enterprise accounts and getting in there. And that was my claim to fame of how I even got recruited by my VP, Adam Aarons. Was I was one of the top guys in the West Coast breaking into PayPal, AAA, all the big names, MGM on the West Coast, and getting a meeting a day on enterprises. So learning, from the ground up how to, like, structure the outbound, having the confidence to cold call CISOs, CXOs, and so since then, my liquidity event and how I became an angel was through Okta and through closing big deals myself personally as a consultant. I worked, up until 2019 is when I went my last W-2 job, and I've just, went hardcore into angel investing. So sourcing deals for VCs, getting VC mentorships and partnerships, and that was an opportunity to learn how do VCs, evaluate founders? Like that's what I got out of it. Like I brought them founders. I went to go find them. I had a thesis, which was, investing in enterprise or not enterprise, a B2B SaaS at the time, and bringing those type of founders to the table. So that led to just, every entrepreneur needs three things. They need people, they need money, which is funding, and they need customers. And I helped with the latter two really good, or really, excuse me, really well. And I just built my own consulting business around that. And I started pulling all these lessons. So, I mean, during the process, I would reteach enterprise sales training 101, the frameworks, the methodologies again and again and again to each new client. And the project that I'm working on is compiling all those different lessons into a textbook, a book, so that the next generation with AI and AI outbounding, can be prepared for building champions in the new age.
Mm.
So, I mean, I could talk a little bit more about that, but
No, you actually said a couple things I want to double click on. So I wanted to
yeah.
actually hear maybe a story or, company that a success story or a client that you took through a journey, like, and started landing big deals. I'm kind of curious to hear, like, what's the transformation and how do you meet these people?
The transformation, when I wrote, like, when I think about processing all this, right? So becoming audible ready, right? Becoming enterprise audible ready. So the story that, when I rewrite these kind of, like, I'm thinking through the question, right? So an aha moment happened when I was shadowing the rep that was trying to get into JP Morgan Chase. And see, in sales training, you're trained on the product a lot and not necessarily trained on how to think like an enterprise. So the tidbit is, you got to get to know and be prepared before you do your meeting and outreach, right? And what we would do, and what I learned, is we would study the company. So you would pull up a 10K report. Like with AI now, you can ask, hey, what is JP Morgan's top initiatives that they're working on a tech side? And before, you would have to control F and pull the 10K, which is their annual report, and control F all the, which is find tech, find cloud computing, find security. Like those are the keywords that I would search for to find
Mm.
the initiative, so that when you do reach out to a VP, you're crafting the message in a way that you intimately know that their business, and you can kind of hint that you know it. I mean, that's what's going to separate you from the noise amount, mass emailing, mass marketing, is when you can really put yourself in the customer's shoes and understand their initiatives and projects and regurgitate how, well, A, you're an expert in the industry, and B, you have a solution and offering that can actually address those initiatives that the corporation is already going towards. And the preparation to studying that and knowing how to do your elevator pitch, I call that becoming audible ready. So when I work with entrepreneurs, you got to be able to answer your three whys, right? Why do anything? Why do it now? And why you? Why are you the service or vendor of choice to actually do anything? And I get people, and a lot of what sales training is for me personally as a rep, but also me as, like, coach, is getting them to a point where they can clearly, concisely answer those three questions and have customer references, stories to back into that. I mean, look, there's a lot of different stories. I think one of the breakthroughs, for example, of, like, how do you get a meeting into, when I was a rep, and one of the campaigns, one of the things I teach is you got to search for the innovators in the account, right? So a lot of times, one of the mistakes I see is, like, you're calling into legacy old companies, right? Well, they're gonna, you know, they're not gonna do anything because they care about regulation, they care about compliance. You need to go earlier into the innovators, the early adopters. And one of the breakthrough stories that kind of launched my career was when I was cold calling, for BMC Software, which, by the way, is not a cool brand, right? They are old mainframe technology, on-premise software. So I had to find a way to, like, get people's attention. And when I called into IT architects, I learned they were the people responsible for looking at new stuff like cloud computing. Like in 2011, cloud computing was the hot, like it is what its AI is right now. And going and selling innovation gets people's attention. Selling to the people who care about innovation, they're the people who are willing to give you that time, right? So it's really thinking more strategically about your accounts, where you're calling into, and who cares about new, exciting stuff. They're the people who you want to get in front of, in my opinion. Who's going to create the most results, especially if you're selling new and cutting edge technology.
That's a really good word. And I think, with my AI agency, I have noticed that even if they're a stud and they have a big company, they're not ready for certain conversations. So that's such a good word, because you want to actually talk with people. It doesn't matter like how big the account is. If they don't want to have that conversation, or maybe you just need to pivot your strategy and find someone else in the account that wants to have this conversation if the founder or owner doesn't. I love that.
You got to find the people who are going to be your champion, right? So what, if I had to summarize, my enterprise sales training, and this is, by the way, what's been brainwashed into me, right, is you got to build champions. And these are the people who are risk takers, who are willing to put their career in line and put their, I think about when you adopt a new vendor, you're taking a huge risk,
Yeah.
right? But there are people who are willing to push the edge. And those are the people, in my opinion, right now, who you need to seek out, right? The people who are afraid of change, whose jobs are at risk, right? Those are kind of like your saboteurs. You have to navigate around them, right? But yeah, thinking strategically is a big part of what is required to close big deals.
That's good. Okay. So now I'm thinking, okay, what happens when founders get it? Like, what changes? Do you actually help them, Irwin? Like, hey, let's say I'm a tech founder. I have a big enterprise deal. Like, can I call Irwin and like help me negotiate this deal? Or like, what level do you come in and kind of handhold?
I mean, that is my core offer that I help, right? Is my deal desk mastermind. One of the great customer use case example is a crypto company of all places called
Hmm.
Graffle.io. And they were working with this one customer that they thought was a legit pipeline best case deal for 5 months. And they, when they heard that I teach enterprise selling, dude, we have no experience doing enterprise selling. Let me do like a 6-week training with you. And part of that was hopping on and doing the exact same deal discovery and analysis that what we do in the business, right? So what we do is we do a MEDDIC framework, MEDDICC, and actually MEDDIC their deal. And through the process, on one of the D's, which is decision criteria, what showed up was, basically they have this list, this Excel with all the features that they want, to build out. So to give you some context, they were selling NFT for corporations. So software to help corporations create NFTs to sell to their
Hmm.
consumers. And they had this buyer, or this prospect, excuse me, that had a list of all these things they want to build. And I was like, wait a minute. Did you influence this requirement and challenge them? And they're like, no. I'm like, bro, this is the most detailed products like feature doc. And if you didn't influence it, this tells me that they're building it internally and they're using you as consulting, free consulting. And
Dang.
I was like, you need to go back and ask them who built this and why are you building this? Because they were building this without you. And when they did that, they realized, oh shit, Irwin, and that's what we do in enterprise sales is we really deal inspect, because one of the biggest deal killers is wasting time. And they were like, this is a real prospect. We're working 5 months in it. And on that one call doing deal inspection, I was able to, put the frameworks in to give them the courage to ask the right questions. And then they learned really quickly that everything that I feared what came true. But the
I've had
good,
that happen too. And that's a really valuable thing to provide, is like, look, they're literally going to reverse engineer your offering and wipe out the potential.
that's
So
why you
I
need
love
that's
that.
why you need a real champion, right?
Yeah.
People think that they have a champion, but a champion is only real once you test them.
Yeah.
You have to test your champion to really know what. So the way that we define a champion is a person who has power and influence, and they're fighting for you.
Hmm.
Okay, and you can only really test that when you test your champion. And by the way, these are all the little frameworks, all the things that I've been downloaded
That's cool. I
through.
like that.
Yeah,
Well, in the Bible,
yeah,
in campus ministry, we used to call it a man of peace on the different dorm rooms. It's like you want to find the cool kid who's mainstream, well, not necessarily cool, but has sway. And so I'm thinking back to my time with campus outreach where I'm like, I looked for the man of peace on the hall that was going to influence when he was like the first domino. If he falls, all his friends will want to come to the campus ministry meeting or whatever.
The only thing I don't like about that is I mean, man of peace creates a different meaning for me.
Yeah.
Right.
I like the champion.
Right.
I like champion. Yeah.
Right. But you're looking for a champion, right? Person with power and influence who can sway, right? And that's, by the way, how deals are done in enterprise. You're
Yeah.
trying to find that champion, build the champion, and then test the champion, and then through the testing, you create the mutual closing plan to set. Because again, a lot of these are. I've made every single mistake you can think of, and I've seen it in entrepreneurs, and these are what we do in sales forecast meetings and deal inspection meetings. So I'm just basically applying what I've been doing as a sales leader, as a salesperson, and so to answer your question, yes, I offer this. It's a great in value, and here's a success story with Grapple: is they were able to shoot the deal, which is a huge thing. Once you are willing to like kill the deal, they channeled all their focus now to another prospect, which was Mattel, and they landed a mid six figure, and then now the total cost of spend is over 7 figures for their NFT product. So all the NFT
Wow.
Mattel is powered by Grapple, and that wouldn't have happened if they didn't kill the deal and change their focus. So and use some of the methodologies that I teach from my book one deal away.
Okay, Irwin, in your business right now, what's going well and what's not going so well? So what's something you're proud about? It's going really well. What's something you kind of feel like, hey, I wish this was better. I needs to be fixed.
Yeah. So what's going well is a lot of entrepreneurs, can't afford me, but I have a lot of value in these. So what's going well is the third iteration of this book, One Deal Away. I'm really proud of it. I think this is a great $20 buy to capture these enterprise methodologies and applying it to your business. What's not going well is, I'm coaching with Dan Martell right now, and one of the
I forgot that we're both in there. I love that.
So I haven't been consistent with my content creation. So again, that's just like but going towards the launch of the book, I'm gonna hit those daily non-negotiables, but that could be better, right? Putting content out every day, that's why we're on the call today too, is just create more content. But yes, we are in the same mastermind there with Dan Martell.
I forgot about that. That's a really rare thing where you're a Ruck brother and a Dan Martell homie. So I love that.
I'm a big investor in invest in yourself, right? It's I'm going to China like tonight, and I'm carrying Irwin. Irwin is with me at all times, right? So the more you invest in yourself, it's inflation proof, it's territory proof. I'm a big believer in investing in yourself and investing in your network to increase your just that's that place to put your bets.
Well, dude, it always comes back to me when I join these coaching communities. Like everyone's offer out there is like 10 grand, private coaching community, access to my course, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, dude, 10 grand is like one client for me, less than one client. So you're telling me that I'm not going to get one client from this coaching community? Like it pays for itself. And the amount of people I've gotten from Ruck, right? And that's not why I do it. But if I look in like, what's the most scalable thing that I've done to grow my businesses is joining these networks, right? That everyone in Elite wants to get better. We all want to get on another level. Rise Up Kings, same thing. And so if someone's like, hey man, come join my thing for 10 grand and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, I'll do it because I know in the back of my mind, it's one client. So
people talk about the wealth gap. And I think the biggest thing that I believe that is an advantage is pay to play networking.
Yeah.
Putting yourself in proximity at a high ticket, because not everybody in America can do that, right? They have to grow into that. You have an offer that you can just immediately offer people to pay for that. But that's also a skill, right? In a business. Anyways, what else do you want to talk about?
Did you answer what's not going so well?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I zoned out. It was so amazing.
It was the content, like daily
Well,
content, right?
that's right. Oh, okay, good. All right, let's talk about AI, right? You have a unique perspective on this since you're working with guys in Silicon Valley, but how do you, yeah, where do you see it going? How are you using it, and where do you feel like maybe you could be using it that you're not?
Yeah, so I use it as a tool for entrepreneurs to help with their ICP hunting and
Mm,
generating pipeline. So ICP is ideal customer profile. A lot of early stage startups, you're trying to find out who's your ideal customer, your ideal buyer. And with AI automation, with LinkedIn automation has been huge for a strategy. So I partnered with this one company to do AI outbound for LinkedIn automation to just because that process is very manual, right? You're creating a thesis. I think it's this person with this niche and go attack it, right? And what I see in the market is there's a lot of companies now that are um, really making it more AI, where before, when they reach out to your LinkedIn profile, Andrew, they'll be able to, say, hey, I saw you study at this university, or you posted about something that traditionally would have to do manually, but like a lot of older kind of outreach tech hasn't it hasn't got to that level of reaching out to, hey Andrew, I'm writing to you. But the vendors that I've looked at, it's happening, it's getting there.
hmm
It's a very crowded space on the tools to get there, but I will say that they're naturally going that direction. So it's going to be even harder now to do the customized enterprise outreaches, like, because a lot of people will be doing it, right? But that is the opportunity. And yeah, so happy to chat more about that. But it's there, right? The tools are there. I talk to startups and evaluate startups all the time, and I have a couple of vendors, but no need to blow that up, right? Uh,
Okay, so with AI, so you're kind of in the heart of it. You see a lot of ways it's being used. Like when you look at your business, I kind of feel like with the AI stuff, it's like I think there's an AI for that. I'm just not really sure. What's one area of your business you feel like you could be using AI, or you feel like it's right for AI?
so I mean, I think for me, uh, AI content posting is something I'm like, think about it. We have a daily negotiable. Like the AI that I'm using, Claude, is trained with all my content. I just need to go use it, right, and just automate the posting of it, and then also using the outreach tools to go and get it right. So it's all there. It's just a matter of like, do I want to get more clients because I do have a level of freedom that I really enjoy.
Mm, that's great. Okay, you and I switching gears. We both know each other through Rise of Kings. What's one major way that it's either changed your life, business, or any of the, any and everything above?
I think it's always a great reminder for the values that I aspire to be, right? I think I shared a little bit of well, in short of it is you're either conscious or unconscious of how you want to show up in the world. And choosing to show up as a disciplined and respectful and connected man, which are the ways I'm choosing. Again, it's not easy if you're not naturally that, which is why it works well for me. But I think the program has been great, not only as a jumpstart to the man I want to become, but it's also a great, because like how we met is I was a volunteer. I came in to serve, and that, I was like reflecting on that because I'm thinking about my shares to my family that I'm about to go hang out with, and it was spiritual, man. Like it was an extremely spiritual experience. I fasted for 4 days for the first time during that
Mm,
program as I was serving, and the guys that had some ridiculous breakthroughs were all connected to me in some capacity. And I was like,
mm,
man, I don't know. Like, is the fasting helping people? Like, like what's happening in the physical realm that's happening in the spiritual realm? I don't have an
mm,
answer because it's occurring. Um, but I'm still processing some of that when I reflect on it.
mm. That's
Like,
a
I
good
don't know
word.
how deep you want to go on this, this podcast, but it's like, you feel like some guys really had some spiritual release or demonic, people to say, hey, people who had, people who had some, like, was it demons? I don't know. Right. But it was very like, they had breakthroughs. I will say that they had breakthroughs, and it was the way it occurred in the physical realm was, it was just like, I can't even describe it. It just was like a physical
Dude,
reaction for them.
no shame in sharing. So, like, I'm telling everybody I see. So, right at Retcon, guy was healed of a tumor in his ear. Like,
Really?
that's crazy. Like literally hadn't been able to hear in his ear for 10 years. And he was weeping on the floor because Skylar opened up a time where we're going to pray and trust God for healing. He's like, even I felt, he said he was like nervous about it, and all the coaches were nervous about it. They didn't know if God would show up and do and heal. But a woman crippled by scoliosis also healed. Like, there were crazy stories. And so, dude, the next day after the Forge, I was like, so much like more bold about my faith. I think I was getting my hair cut. And, we were talking about, it's like, well, you know what? I just witnessed a demon being exorcised from somebody. So I know it's real. So if you're an atheist or whatever, like we're going to talk about this because I just had a conversation. I didn't have a conversation, but I witnessed a demon being exorcised. So if you want to talk about it, I'm happy to talk about it.
No,
So
yeah, I don't know if I'm comfortable, I guess. you know, because again, I don't know how to like put into words what we experienced, right? It was, other than it
yeah.
was a spiritual, miraculous experience that if we set it into reality, it just doesn't. It just I can see a world where it's hard to believe, you know.
Yeah.
Um. So, anyways,
Okay, so maybe there's a founder, and I talk to a lot of blue collar guys, so I don't necessarily have a growing audience with tech bros or startup guys, but I think what you teach and what you kind of espouse is universal to some extent. I feel like every contractor I talk to probably wants to get bigger deals, right? I think we all do. So, like, what's one thing leaving this podcast that you would say to that person trying to get those bigger contracts?
yeah, go to Amazon, buy for $20, right? Like, I'm there's so much like talk about the ROI, right? Like, I've become a millionaire through this process, right? At a young age, like,
Yeah.
and I think people, and then there's a level of freedom, right? I'm able to volunteer with you guys for a week, not, nothing happened, right? And I want that level of freedom and abundance for everybody.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why I'm spending all this time writing and pouring it into a very low offer. It's a pure contribution to them. So like just read my book, right? Like at the end of the day, there's a reason why I'm doing it. It's so that you can buy this knowledge for cheap. And if you want private coaching, I'm here to help, right? And I think that's giving me meaning to leave this legacy for the next generation because it is universal. I think this initially started last year when I went to an AI conference and I saw robotics taking over, and I was left with an holy crap moment where the only thing that's going to be like the thing that's going to withstand the test of time is people to people buying and selling. So, what I fear most is with all this AI outbound being automated, there's not a lot of young people who are going to get the SDR jobs that used to be in plethora. So SDRs being, people who cold call, do outreaches, that was the gateway job to get into technology sales. And I see with automation, a lot of those headcounts are going to be eliminated. So this skill set is going to be less and less, provided available to others because there's less people going into the funnel. But at the end of the day, when people are still going to do the buying, that skill set is going to last, right? When you go
Yeah.
person to person, executive to executive, and what it forces people to do is you have to go higher up the org chart because those jobs aren't going, and closing big deals, right? So those, in my opinion, no one's going to automate the outflow of their cash, right? Like there's still going to be some sort of manual delivery of like a CFO approving a check, right? That
Yeah.
like so So what that means is enterprise selling is going to be even more crucial as the skill set itself for the future. And I'm
Yeah.
here to help with that transition as much as I can.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. And everybody go buy the book. Can they buy it right now, or is it dropping soon?
So Andrew, I think we're going to release this when
That's
it's
right.
available.
Okay. Thank you for catching me there. We're going to release it when it's available. Good call.
Thank you.
I like that.
Yeah.
One thing that always struck me as a financial advisor is the conversation I had with the ultra high net worth client who had $20 million of liquid or $100 million liquid, right? Was kind of the same conversation I had with the guy that had like $1 million, right? It just, maybe there was a little bit more like checks and balances, due diligence, whatever you want to call it, but it was fairly like the same conversation, you know? And with enterprise sales, I kind of feel like it's the same way, like the big deals, there's going to be more checks and balances, probably more bureaucracy, probably more deliverables, probably more like stringent, like, time frames. But by and large, I feel like it's not like a totally different conversation. Am I wrong in saying that?
It's a more complex conversation.
Yeah.
And one thing that you're not accounting for is a high net worth individual versus an ultra high net worth versus a regular, I don't know if you might not know that you don't know that there are actually going to be differences between the two.
Yeah.
I
Oh yeah.
understand.
Ultra high net worth for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So like, I'm challenging you there because I'm like, well, you're going to have the same conversations for the initial meeting, but when we start talking about asset allocation and really going into you got to have some, like, you're gonna have to bring some expertise to really get the checks for those ultra net worth, high net worth. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's just my personal opinion, by the way.
No, that's a good word. It's a good word. It's true.
Because I actually disagree with you on what you just shared. Because when you go into an org chart, right? Like, like one of the stories in my book is the rep who covers Apple. Dude, Apple has like 60,000 plus employees, like, thousands of departments, like not thousands, but like, my point of the matter is, bro, it's when you say bureaucracy, like that is a huge, that's the complexity of it, right? The different decision makers, different applications within a company, the people who run different apps with different, like, it's complex selling, right? You're playing chess, not checkers. And if you think that it's the same conversation, you're gonna lose because
yeah,
it is more complex. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. What this book and what this process does is it simplifies a complex process, because to do a buying process with a company like Apple versus a startup is so much longer and so much more complex, and so many times you're going to waste time in enterprise. Like, that's what happened to a lot of startups, like, who don't know how to navigate those deals. You're going to waste a lot of time talking to people who you think might be a deal. And kind of like the Graphful use case, they're going to spend 5 months doing nothing but helping people for free, right? Our job, or my job as a founder coach, is to teach you the enterprise selling methodologies to reduce that risk, to reduce your time to killing a deal or closing a deal, right? To find your champions, to build multiple champions. Like, when you're working with a SMB, you're pretty much working with a decision maker. But when you are working with a large org chart, there's multiple decision makers that you need to build. You need to build multiple champions. You need to multi-thread your org chart, because what if they join another company and if you're single threaded on your champion, your risk is there.
That's good. Irwin, if people want to learn more about who you are and what you do, where can they go?
IrwinKi.com. My socials, Irwin_Ki on Instagram. But yeah, sign up for the free mailing list. I'll give you, let's start there, right? Just get to the book. That way when I talk to you, you're somewhat educated in the methodologies. Because that's a lot of why I do this, is like, I'm teaching the same things that were taught to me, and again and again and again, and I got tired of it. So I'm like, right, I'm like, here, go over here, check it out, and then if you want more help, I'm here to help.
I love it. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Don't go anywhere. I want to keep talking, but thanks for coming on the podcast.
No problem.